Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're watching the EBC international coverage of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Anna Kui, coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. Tonight, we have the updates from several of our correspondents here in the U.S. and in Canada. We'll start with Thomas Likeness in Edmonton, Alberta.
Canada's Prime Minister announces more money for health care.
Ken Cruz in Fort Washington, Maryland.
Maryland Governor Hogan upholds stay-at-home order.
Next, we have Philip Toledo from Atlanta, Georgia.
Georgia residents spend the first weekend outside after the shelter-in-place expired.
Next, we go to Kathleen Gregorio in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Texas governor announces new guidance for unemployment claimants.
Andre Rayutatar in North Hollywood, California. We'll talk about how LA County faces more food insecurity, more than any county in the U.S. We'll also have Angel Membrera in Sacramento, California, who will tell us about additional resources for Californians, a portal for childcare options, and the Friendship Line. Plus, tonight, we will be joined by a tourism expert in Hawaii to share with us how Hawaii is slowly reopening its economy. And we'll learn how to make your own vegetable garden with the help of a horticulturist in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. But first, an overview of how the world looks now. According to the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University in Medicine, as of 3 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday, May 3rd, 2020, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now more than 3,400,000. This includes more than 1,100,000 in the U.S. and more than 58,000 in Canada. Sadly, this virus has claimed more than 245,000 lives worldwide. This number includes more than 66,000 deaths in the U.S. and more than 3,600 in Canada. Our coverage begins now. Joining Eagle News today is Jeff Agapai, a tourism expert based in Honolulu, Hawaii. Today, he will talk about how the COVID-19 pandemic greatly affected Hawaii's tourism industry and how the state plans to slowly get back on its feet. Thank you for joining us, Jeff. How are you doing?
Aloha, everyone. The tourism industry in the whole, however, because of the 14-day self-quarantine process that we have in Hawaii, we are controlling the pandemic with the number of tourism coming to Hawaii, but slowly the economy is not where it once was last year. The reason for that is because of the current situation, the pandemic that we are having around the world. Hawaii is already flattening the curve, but we are not where we want to be. We cannot even reopen the major economy that we have, which is the tourism industry. There's only two types of industry that we're looking at, is the tourism and also everything else. So the tourism plays a very vital part in the state of Hawaii.
Can you tell us, a little bit more details on how the COVID-19 in general has affected the tourism? I mean, obviously it has affected it negatively, but can you give us a little bit more details?
Many of the tourists that are arriving in Hawaii are briefed when they get to Hawaii on the process that we have. There is a 14-day self-quarantine order that is directed from the state, and once they hear about that, they are quarantined in their respective hotels. If they are a resident of Hawaii, then they are quarantined in Hawaii. But before they even arrive in Hawaii, they have already been briefed on what to expect when they arrive in our state. And so many of them are thinking if they should or should not go. If they break the rule when they get here, then of course they will be subject to getting some kind of arrest or some kind of fine.
Well, I guess those steps that you put in place still help for tourists to still come in into the state then. Is that right?
Yes, there are not that many people that are coming to the state. From what we once were with 10,000 visitors arriving last year, right now as we speak, the number has gone down to at least 500 total from yesterday. So that is just per day. It could vary from day to day.
So what steps are being taken now to by the government to reopen the economy there in Hawaii?
Right now, the main purpose, how to reopen the economy is one thing that they're looking at is it safe to open with some of the things that are opening right now, such as the groceries and other non-essential places that need to open. But the thing that they're asking each other is it safe to open? Because they fear of a second wave that might be happening in the near future. The tourism industry itself is a very big part of Hawaii. If you're looking at a timeline, it's not even close to where we're thinking as of compared to like a grocery store. The timeline for maybe the industry to open, it varies. And it also depends on if the tourist wants to come and visit Hawaii during the time.
Well, on a positive note, I mean, Hawaii, because of the aggressive measures that you put in place, that the local government has put in place, I mean, national data shows that it's, Hawaii is one of the states that's really faring well in controlling the spread of the virus. So congratulations to that, right?
Thank you. Yes. And because we want to thank the government for doing such a good job.
And as a husband and a father, how are you staying positive despite this, despite the situation the world is facing right now?
It's really hard when we see each other every single day. With the jobs are lost, I'm thankful that I still have work to do and also my wife. But it's really easy to find ways to motivate yourself, but just to motivate the whole family in general is a challenge. So every day, every night, we always have to prepare our children and ourselves on activities on what they need to do. And thankfully for the schools, they have also activities that they try to motivate the kids and try to keep us afloat and try to stay sane. So it takes a handful of people to try to keep everybody safe for the first thing, and keep everybody active so that we can overcome this obstacle that we know it's going to overcome in the near future.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's been the motto everywhere across the globe, actually, right? That's we are all in this together, and it's only when we do that together, when we unite in that, in that goal, that we will be able to really beat the virus. I'm curious though, Jeff, are there any specials that that's going to be going on in Hawaii, like travel packages that you've heard of to boost the tourism in the coming days? Have you heard of any special packages?
Yeah. The only thing that's happening right now is when you can book a flight. I mean, the hotels, there's a lot of hotels that are available. And I know they don't have packages, but I think individual airlines have rates that have gone down drastically. The only thing is that when you arrive here, there's a waiver form that you need to fill out, and you need to stay in your hotel for 14 days. That's the only challenge that you get. So you can't even go to McDonald's. You have to have maybe Uber Eats bring McDonald's to you.
Well, that's going to be surely tough. But I'm sure people, Hawaii is so beautiful. So I'm sure anybody that goes there will find something to do, even within just the resort compound there. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us. Hopefully we'll get you back on the show another time. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you very much.
When we come back, COVID-19 updates from our correspondents in Canada and across the U.S. Stay with us.
Magtatagumpay tayo, salamat. Importante po sinubukan natin, ginawa natin yung makakaya natin.
Napatunayan ko na yung talent na binigay sa akin ng Diyos, mas may expose pa. Kaya sa mga ibang artist dyan, lalo na sa mga may kapansanan din, mag-explore pa tayo ng ibang bagay tulad nito. Huwag tayong magtago, huwag tayong mahihiya. Gawin natin kung ano yung gusto talaga nating gawin.
This program is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Sandig Sugar-Free White Coffee, puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na, Sandig Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Vet-approved Nutri-Chunks, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and probiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo ganado ang fur babies nyo. Listo ganado sa Nutri-Chunks. Co-presented by Kubert, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Kubert, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee, masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. In participation with Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint. Color for protection for your home. Matimco. Matimco is wood. Wood is Matimco. R Square Variables Incorporated, your trusted UPS supplier and UPS maintenance provider in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. CompuZell Computer Services, ID card and lanyard manufacturer. Saisho International Trading Corporation. DN Steel. EMAC UPVC Roof Corporation.
Hey, Gretchen Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
The successful development of TPLEX, or Tarlac Pangasinan La Union Expressway in 2009, a 4-lane toll road that extends from Tarlac City to Rosario La Union, with an additional approved extension of 56 kilometers all the way to San Juan La Union. This is expected to reduce travel time to Baguio and other provinces in northern Luzon. Realizing the vision of creating a better world for Filipinos fueled the team's focus.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved Nutri-Chunks with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa Nutri-Chunks.
Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News. I'm Anna Kui in Las Vegas. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announces more money for healthcare. We have Thomas Likeness from Edmonton, Alberta. Hi, Thomas.
Good evening, Anna. Hope all is well in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Our Prime Minister, you're right. He had the government checkbook out again, this time to cover the cost of a couple of healthcare announcements. Now, the first one is for $200 million. That money is going to be spent on virtual health. A part of it will be platforms that Trudeau wants created for mental health, but he also says one of those platforms will be set up for primary care.
By helping doctors run appointments online, you can stay safe at home while getting care, and our hospitals can stay focused on those who need it most. If we can use apps to order dinner and video chats to stay in touch with family, we can use new technology to keep each other healthy.
Online office visits, the way of the future. You know, I think I'm going to try that because my reading material in my waiting room is far more current than the doctor's. Anyway, the second check is going to a Vancouver-based company. Trudeau says the company is doing research on a potential vaccine against COVID-19.
Today, I can announce that we're investing over $175 million to support the Canadian company AbCellera for their very promising COVID-19 research. They've identified antibodies that could be used in drugs to treat this virus. This new funding will help them continue their vital work and will support human trials beginning as early as July.
Now, this money announced today is in addition to that $1.1 billion he announced a little over a week ago for research into coronavirus vaccines and treatments. Still with bioscience, a setback for an Ottawa company that developed a rapid test for COVID-19. Spartan Bioscience announced today it's voluntarily recalling the testing kits. The company says it's concerned about its effectiveness. About 5,500 of those kits were sent to 3 Canadian provinces after Health Canada approved its use on the 13th of April. They had not yet been put into service. Now, I want to bring you up to date on a couple of other stories we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks. You recall the beef processing plant in southern Alberta in High River, the one with the big COVID-19 outbreak. It was temporarily closed for 14 days. It's set to reopen this week, beginning of the week. Nearly half the workers there have tested positive for COVID-19. There's about 2,000 workers employed at the plant, and about half of them come from the Filipino community in High River. Now, the union representing the workers is taking legal action to prevent the plant from opening. Union President Tom Hess says the issue of social distancing hasn't been addressed. He says the plant isn't safe. Cargill, which owns the plant, says it is safe. It's installed protective barriers and will provide face shields to workers who are working in areas where there are no barriers. As well, there's restrictions on carpooling. Hess, though, says workers are afraid to go back. He adds many of them feel they have no choice but to return. You see, it's an economic thing, and these are big-paying jobs. They're not jobs that you can easily replace. This, incidentally, is no small plant. It produces more than a third of Canada's beef supply. So this is a big money issue, not only for the company, but for workers, for everybody involved. Now, those of you wondering what's happening in Fort McMurray where that ice jam caused extensive flooding, here's a bit of an update. Parts of the city have been reopened as the water levels have dropped. It's hard, though, for some people to move back into their homes because of the damage. Originally, about 13,000 people forced out of their homes. That's down to about 3,700 now. Boil water orders still remain in effect. You got to boil the water before you drink it because the flooding just overwhelmed the water treatment plant, and that water is contaminated now. More than 1,200 homes and buildings have been damaged. Be a while before we can put a dollar figure on that. And again, we'll keep you posted on developments in that region. Oh, one last thing. The Royal Canadian Air Force snowbirds. Now, those of you down there, the way you can relate to that is like the Thunderbirds of, is that the Navy or the Army? I'm going to insult one of them. But it's an aerobatic military team. They flew over parts of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick today. They're kicking off their national tour. The squadron started in the Maritimes, but will be flying over different parts of Canada. And this is to pay tribute to Canadians who are battling the pandemic. For all of you, I wish you all good health. Take care of others and take care of yourselves. Stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned to Eagle News for accurate and balanced coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for that overview of everything that's happening there. Now, it comes timely for this Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's plan in investing in the telemedicine, which includes mental health. I was wondering if, with the universal health care there in Canada, does it include, what is the extent of the coverage for behavioral health?
Pretty much 100%. Well, 100% if it's medical. Now, what's medical? If you're being treated for depression, yes. If you're seeking somebody for marriage counseling, no. So in terms of a medical reason, depression, that sort of thing, always 100%. And that includes the hospitalization. There is absolutely no copay.
That's really good to know. That's a great coverage for behavioral health. So, and I like the idea of being able to, hopefully that's one of the things that will stay as far as telemedicine, not having to go into your doctor's office, even for a primary care visit, even after all this is over. Because that's, we see that in pediatrics where they have a wellness visit and a sick visit, separated waiting rooms. Hopefully that's something that will stay. What do you think about that?
Well, there's a lot of minor things. You need an opinion from your doc. Well, first of all, it takes 2 weeks to get in because they're overbooked. And secondly, you really don't need to see them in person. It's just a question. And a lot of times, maybe you got an abnormal growth or something on your arm. If it's a televisit, he can have kind of a look at it and determine, yeah, maybe you should come in, or no, it's nothing, that sort of thing. So it could save some time, it could save some money, and money's a big thing in the Canada healthcare system. We spend a tremendous amount of the federal budget on healthcare. We've got to control those costs so that that system can be sustainable, because we certainly don't want to lose it.
Exactly. I think that would be a great idea, and good to see. That would be a good thing to see, not only there, but hopefully in other places. Now, what about you, Thomas, with all the, the added stress, not only about covering about COVID-19, but also the recent, events that has happened there? That's added stress. How are you, what are measures that you're doing to manage your stress at home?
Well, luckily I have a wife that is very understanding of me. Again,
maybe you're the one giving her stress.
a lot of things I like to read. I watch a little bit of television, just pure escapism. I don't want anything that's even, if I can watch the MacGyver series, I don't mean to plug them. And of course, there's a lot of Eagle programming up there I watch as well. I did this for most of my life, so you just kind of, you kind of just know when to get away and you just forget about it for a little while.
Exactly. We have to know when to step back when it's getting to us. So thank you for sharing that, Thomas. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll talk to you again next time.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Hannah.
Take care. Despite mounting pressure to reopen Maryland, Governor Hogan upholds the stay-at-home order. Eagle News correspondent Ken Cruz from Fort Washington reports. Ken?
Thanks, Anna. So Maryland Governor Larry Hogan on Sunday pushed back against pressure to lift the stay-at-home order, saying he respects the rights of demonstrators who gathered over the weekend to protest the restrictions, but that it's too soon to safely reopen the state. Hogan pointed to the crowds of people gathered at the National Mall and in other public spaces to enjoy the weekend's temperate spring weather as cause for concern. An example of why he is reluctant to immediately lift measures designed to contain the deadly coronavirus. Hogan said, quote, everybody has a right to protest and express their feelings. Sadly, we had more people die yesterday in Maryland than we had protesters, end quote. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam also is hearing from residents and businesses who want restrictions eased. Northam's order closing most non-essential businesses is set to expire Friday. And the governor said last week that he will have guidance Monday on whether he intends to extend the ban. As of Friday, Northam had lifted a ban on non-emergency procedures for doctors, dentists, and veterinarians. Hogan, Northam, and D.C. Mayor Muriel E. Bowser have said any reopening of the region would be a coordinated effort. Hogan has said he won't consider lifting stay-at-home measures until the state sees either a consistent plateau or downward trend in new hospitalizations and new intensive care unit patients. Even so, he and leaders in other states continue to face pressure from some corners to reopen more quickly. On Saturday, a modest crowd of residents frustrated by the prolonged social distancing restrictions held a rolling reopening Maryland protest from Frederick to Salisbury. The number of people hospitalized in Maryland for COVID-19 was down for the third consecutive day on Sunday, so that's good news. And new admissions were mostly stable in Virginia, also good news. The daily increases in deaths across the greater DMV region have roughly plateaued in the past week, and governments of those jurisdictions have made progress in expanding testing, hiring contact tracers, and stockpiling personal protecting equipment. Still, the number of people dying of complications from the coronavirus remains alarmingly high, and it spiked on Saturday and Sunday in Virginia. As for the numbers, as of 9 p.m. tonight, Maryland has 25,465 confirmed coronavirus cases with 1,281 COVID-19 related deaths. Virginia has 18,671 cases with 660 deaths. Washington, D.C. has 5,016 cases with 251 deaths. In Fort Washington, Maryland, Ken Cruz, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Ken, for that report. I really like that Governor Hogan acknowledged the protesters, right? That is their right to do so. But like you said, sadly there were more who died, more who died than those who protested. Now, overall, the DMV region, would you say that it's the numbers are plateauing, but would you say that it's flattening the curve? It's starting to do that.
Numbers-wise, yes. Death-wise, no. And it's kind of tough because This past weekend we had the Blue Angels, the Navy Blue Angels, Air Force Thunderbirds. They flew over the DMV region, so Maryland, Virginia, Washington D.C., and one of the main places that they flew over was like the National Mall in D.C. And there were like hundreds of people based on pictures that gathered there. Like most of them did practice social distancing, but that doesn't, go over the fact that they were out there, one, and there were quite a few that didn't wear masks, nor did they practice social distancing. So that's a little alarming. And, for me, it kind of makes me think of back in, elementary school days when, the class is being too loud. So the teacher assigns a detention, right? Not a detention, but a quiet time for 10 minutes. And, the class is quiet for 9 minutes and 59 seconds. And then that one student blurts out loud saying something, and then the teacher goes, all right, extra 10 minutes for everybody.
Ruins it for everybody.
Yeah, and so this is kind of like that where, there are many who are practicing the social distancing, doing their best. We here at my household, we're trying to do our best. And it's very frustrating to see, these hordes of people, going out and, I guess in lack of better terms, is ruining it for everyone. And it's one of those things that if everyone does their part, it can be shorter. And if everyone doesn't do their part, then there might be like a situation like in Michigan, where I believe they're one of the top states as far as COVID-related 19 deaths as of now. And that's I'm guessing a large part due to a lot of the protests.
Yes.
So I'm hoping my region doesn't make that same mistake, and we err to the side of caution for a little while longer.
Yeah, that is the overall, as we see more states opening up, lifting restrictions, that's still the number one message is to continue to observe the social distancing, because we don't want to, step back. We don't want to have a resurgence of the virus, because that will be devastating to a lot of the states.
Absolutely.
I was going to ask you how the Blue Angels and Thunderbirds fly over. For me, it happened here also in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago, and there's something so, patriotic about it, don't you think?
Absolutely, and unfortunately, I kind of live a little far off, about 30 minutes away from the heart of the city, so I didn't get that ear-piercing wake up of the jets flying over. I would have loved to take some pictures in the comfort of my home and backyard, but it is overall, I think, very comforting, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about living in the DMV area is that we have a lot of military, we have a lot of government force here, and so it's nice, and it really does feel that we are united as a nation. With the jets, you think of Top Gun, you think of July 4th. So I watched YouTube videos, and I think that's good enough for me at this point.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Ken, for your report. We'll talk to you again next time. Take care. Georgia residents spent first weekend outside after shelter-in-place expired. In Atlanta, we have Philip Toledo with the details. Philip?
Thanks, Anna. Yes, this was the first full weekend since Georgia's statewide shelter-in-place expired last Thursday. Now, that combined with this being the first weekend in a while without rain in the forecast and temperatures above 80, many in the Atlanta area ventured out of their house. Now, we do have some footage here of the Silver Comet Trail. This is a popular spot for walking, running, biking, and different activities like that. And even though there were social distancing guidelines posted at the beginning, we saw a lot of people out exercising. Not many people were wearing masks. And as you can see there just a second ago, we moved over to a very popular children's playground, which was eerily empty. There was a sign on the door that said that it was open, but there weren't any kids playing, there weren't any families. So it was interesting to see those two different outdoor areas with two different reactions of people, if you will. Just like you also heard in the earlier reports, the U.S. Navy Blue Angels and the Air Force Thunderbirds were flying around the eastern United States this past weekend, and they passed through Atlanta, flying over several of the major hospitals in the city as a tribute to the frontliners, the healthcare workers that are there on the front line of this pandemic. So another reason many Atlantans were out to be able to get a good view of the flyover for that. Now, as we also reported last week, restaurants are now able to open their dining rooms, and we've seen both restaurant owners and patrons begin to venture into this new normal, is what everyone's calling it. Now, I couldn't get too close, but I did see a patio of a local Mexican restaurant, and it was fairly full, and you could see the servers walking around with masks and gloves, and it was just very interesting to see this going on. Now, all of this, in spite of the great weather, the Georgia Department of Health is reporting 28,602 positive cases and 1,177 related deaths as of earlier today. Now, many can and, frankly, are analyzing this and interpreting it in different ways, but as Atlanta city officials reminded everyone through Twitter, the virus is still here, and there's still a need for social distancing, enhanced hygienic practices, and staying home if at all possible. So as the weather starts to warm up, as many stir-crazy residents here of Atlanta start to get more comfortable leaving their homes, we're just going to have to wait and see how the pandemic here in the Southeast unfolds. In Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Philip Toledo, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Well, thank you, Philip, for giving us the picture of what people are doing there, following the lifting of the orders. What about you? What did you do this first weekend after the end of the shelter-in-place order?
Well, first I'll tell you, when I was sitting there watching the Mexican restaurant, and I could smell the the food cooking and see the chips and salsa being laid out for everyone, I was very, very tempted. But my family has been fairly conservative, I guess, when it comes to relaxing our own stay-at-home restrictions. We just stayed inside. My son played in the pool, and I did yard work for my exercise. But I think this was more of a personal decision. We're not necessarily, on the side of the issue where everyone's, super afraid, or on the other side where everyone's just ready to get out and, they don't think that the virus is really anything. We're just trying to be very moderate about it and take our time, and when we feel safe, we'll continue to go out there.
Yep, better safe than sorry. So, well, thank you, Philip. Continue to take care then and be safe.
Take care.
When we come back, more live updates from our Eagle News correspondents. We will return shortly. Stay with us.
Ein sonniger Tag heute hier in Berlin vor dem Bundestag. Ich bin Irene Juliet Arzadon und möchte diese Gelegenheit nutzen, um ein paar Worte mit euch zu teilen. An alle Menschen da draußen. In dieser Zeit lasst uns nicht vergessen, den Menschen zu danken, die ihr Leben für uns opfern. Sei es die Menschen, die im Krankenhaus arbeiten, in den Altenheimen sowie in den Arztpraxen, aber auch an die Menschen, die im Lebensmittelhandel sich befinden. Die Kassierer. Manchmal reicht es aus, um ihnen ein freundliches Lächeln zu geben. Denn die Menschen, die heute am Arbeiten sind, weil sie nicht so wie einige von uns zu Hause bleiben können, die sollten wir wertschätzen. Ihnen sollten wir unseren Dank ausrichten. Darum lasst uns noch mehr zusammenhalten. Sie wertschätzen.
Hi! Malapit na po magsimula ang Pag-isa ng Galing dito po sa Net 25. See you!
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News. I'm Anna Cui at Las Vegas. Governor Greg Abbott announces new guidance for unemployment claimants. Eagle News correspondent Kathleen Gregorio from Corpus Christi, Texas, with the details. Kathleen?
Howdy from Texas, Anna.
Hi.
On Thursday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced that the Texas Workforce Commission, or TWC, has a new guidance for unemployment claimants who choose not to go back to work due to COVID-19. Under this new guidance, Texans may still receive unemployment benefits through the pandemic if they qualify under the TWC guidelines. Governor Abbott stated that as the Lone Star State begins the process of safely and strategically reopening the economy, the top priority is protecting the health and safety of all Texans, especially those who are most vulnerable to COVID-19, and that this flexibility in the unemployment benefit process will help ensure that Texans with certain health and safety concerns will not be penalized for choosing not to return to work, end quote. Each claim for unemployment insurance will be evaluated on an individual basis. And under the COVID-19 emergency, the following are approved reasons for refusing work while still receiving unemployment benefits, such as high risk, which include people who are 65 years or older, who are at a much higher risk for getting sick from COVID-19, having a household member who is at high risk, individuals diagnosed as tested positive for COVID-19 by an authorized source and not yet recovered, a family member with COVID who is tested positive for COVID-19 by an authorized state source and not yet recovered or still within the 14-day quarantine. If an individual is currently in a 14-day quarantine due to close contact exposure to COVID-19, and individuals whose childcare, school, or daycares are closed and have no other alternatives available. And speaking of people going through the unemployment process, which, right now it's a very difficult time for people to try to get in, as there's been a record number of claimants. One lady that I spoke to, she was telling me about her current situation. In fact, we had recorded a video of her explaining her story. Let's take a look.
My name is Cecilia Diaz, and I live in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I am a clinical research nurse. For my job, I was sent to San Jose, California to do testing on COVID patients or potential COVID patients. It was a project that I helped implement a lot of safety issues with the oncoming disease or pandemic. The people that were coming in it was free testing for anybody in the community who had any signs or symptoms and thought they may have been exposed. I was sent there for 3 weeks, and then so after the 3 weeks was up, we rotated out staff, and I was sent back home to Texas. Unfortunately, upon my arrival, there were state troopers at the airport, and we had to sign a waiver and give all your information and a copy of your driver's license and where you'll be staying per the state governor. We had to be quarantined for 14 days. So that just meant that I was unable to leave my house for 14 days and stay away from anybody. Also, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of the research, clinical trials were put on hold for patient safety, and at that time I was laid off. Once I was let go from my company, I was thinking that I needed to file for unemployment. At the time when I was trying to file for unemployment, it kept giving me errors online, and it kept telling me to call a 1-866 number, and it said that they're open every day till 7 p.m. And so I would call at various times of the day, and it didn't even go through, or the line was always busy. So it still took me about 2 weeks to even finally get through online in order to file for unemployment. Due to my field of nursing, it's a very small field to have experience in, and where I live in Corpus Christi, there's not very many, there's actually not any jobs for clinical research. So I have been driving to San Antonio, 2 hours away from here. I've been having to apply for jobs like in Austin, trying to find jobs where I can work remotely. And even though I am applying for jobs, the pay is definitely a large cut from what I was currently making. Unfortunate events that have been going on. I am currently just trying to make myself marketable. I am doing online classes to make sure I can keep my resume fresh and clean, and to add certificates on there. There's a lot of free online classes right now, especially during the COVID-19, to help people improve their resumes once they're able to get back into the market.
So there you have it. That's some of the situation even our frontliners like Cecilia have been having to deal with regarding the unemployment situation. In Corpus Christi, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Anna?
Thank you, Kathleen. That's unfortunate. I didn't catch whether she ended up, being able to get unemployment benefits now.
When we were talking, she told me as of right now, not yet. She's still in the application process. So she's still in the system, but waiting to get those benefits as we speak.
Well, hopefully, that will start for her soon, because on a positive note, here in Nevada, in Las Vegas specifically, I've spoken to a few people where they've actually said that it's a blessing in disguise for them, because now with the added benefit related to the stimulus package, in addition to their unemployment benefits, it's actually been, more for them. They're actually making more than what they were making when they were working. So hopefully that will, with the added stimulus package benefit, that will help her as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a blessing in disguise for some people who can have both their unemployment benefits and the stimulus package. And, it would give them a greater opportunity to stay at home and spend quality time with their family. And, Anna, speaking of staying at home activities, I know you have a horticulturist later on in one of your interviews today, but my family and I, we continue with our gardening as well. And we actually, I brought some video clips to share with you of our latest harvest. We have an abundance of eggplants and okra and chili peppers, as well as we're trying to actually take our vegetable scraps, our table scraps, like from vegetables we bought from the grocery store, and repurpose them, recycle, or how do you say that? Hydroponically replant them. Like, for example, I had some bok choy. It was a really good batch that I had. It's like, I wonder if we can regrow this. So maybe your horticulturist can speak more on that. But I put some in water, and they've been growing more leaves. So hopefully we can plant them later on. And even just regular onions from the grocery store, we tried to put them in water to let them grow roots, so we can plant them out in the backyard later on as ways to save money as an alternative food source.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Kathleen.
Thank you, Anna.
And coincidentally, we have another friend who told me that they regrew bok choy just in water. They've been able to fully regrow it. So that's something I want to try.
Oh, well, go for it. I'm trying it myself. So we'll see what happens.
Boy, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Anna.
Have a good night.
You too.
Well, what's growing in your garden lately? In a little bit, as Kathleen mentioned, we will be having more garden talk, so make sure you stay tuned for that. For now, we'll go to Los Angeles, where county faces food insecurity more than any other counties in the U.S., and the COVID-19 pandemic is making the situation worse. From North Hollywood, we have Eagle News correspondent Anre Rayutatar with more. Anre?
Thank you, Anna. As recorded by the Johns Hopkins University and Medicine Coronavirus Resource Center, the state of California currently has 53,840 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 2,194 deaths. Los Angeles County, there are now 24,894 positive COVID-19 cases with a total of 1,209 deaths. Los Angeles has more residents facing food insecurity than any other county in the entire United States. That statement might be staggering to those who might have envisioned Los Angeles as a sprawling metropolis with a bustling economy. But in the face of the coronavirus pandemic, the problem of feeding such a large population is all the more magnified. And that's where organizations like the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank step in. Since 1973, the food bank has been on a mission to help Angelenos struggling to feed themselves or their families by providing food through their food distribution centers. But with so many residents staying at home and with layoffs and unemployment rising, the food bank has seen the number of their volunteers go down. So too has the financial assistance that companies and other food bank partners usually provide, because they've also suffered staffing shortages and profit loss due to COVID-19. Some companies have even had to shut down operations, forced to wait out the COVID-19 storm. However, not all sponsorships have ground to a halt. In fact, during this critical time, a number of businesses and organizations have actually stepped up donations to help support the functional needs of the food bank. The County of Los Angeles is one such partner, reporting today that they have earmarked $3 million for that Los Angeles Regional Food Bank. The money is planned to directly increase food supplies and to ensure that distribution to communities in need will continue. Donations are still highly sought out by the LA Regional Food Bank because of the ongoing pandemic. The expectation is that the number of job losses will continue to rise, which means that the number of people experiencing food insecurity will also follow suit. Anyone looking to give to the food bank can find information on how to do so on their website at lafoodbank.org. In North Hollywood, California, Anre Rayutatar, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Anre. So I've heard that you've been keeping busy with exercise programs at home.
I have.
That your brother works out with you. How is that working out?
Especially during during these times, it's we miss the gym, but we're making most of every opportunity to work out. So we're doing a lot of cardio, so a lot of push-ups, a lot of squats, and yeah, it's going pretty well.
Is your brother younger or older?
I have two brothers. I have an older one and a younger one.
And who's able to keep up with one another?
I'd say I could still. They're keeping up with me.
Okay, well that's good. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll talk to you again soon. There are additional resources for Californians, a portal for child care, options, and the friendship line. Angel Mambrera in Sacramento has the details. Let's take a look.
Thank you. The California statewide stay-at-home order is still in effect, but dates of these orders do vary depending on the county. In Sacramento County, the stay-at-home order has officially been extended till May 22nd. However, additional resources have become available to help those who have been affected. So Governor Gavin Newsom announced mychildcare.ca.gov, and this is a new online portal created to help find reliable and safe childcare options for parents who are working, which of course includes essential workers. This is part of Governor Newsom's initiative to continue to provide support to the essential workers during this time. And this is also geared toward helping those parents who may no longer have employer-sponsored childcare, and for the children that have no place to go while schools are still physically closed. On another note, May is Older Californians Month, and the current initiative Stay Home, Save Lives Check-In is still being encouraged across the state at this time. To summarize, that's the initiative aimed to look out for the older Californians in our communities, our neighbors, our families, just to make sure that they're all doing okay. And to push this initiative further, the California Department of Public Health has announced the Friendship Line. So lack of physical interaction while staying at home is safe physically, but it's also important for us to keep in mind mental health. So the Friendship Line is available for older Californians and caregivers who may be feeling isolated or lonely and just need someone to talk to during this time. So this Friendship Line can be reached at 1-888-670-1360. So to give an update on the amount of individuals affected by COVID-19 here in California, as of May 3rd, there have been 53,616 cases and sadly 2,215 deaths, including 42 of those deaths coming from the Sacramento County. And although the amount of new cases has decreased as compared to the previous weeks, these are still real people, real individuals, and real families who have been affected. So we offer our sincerest condolences. And I will end with this message from Governor Gavin Newsom, which was given during a press conference on National Workers' Day. Let's listen.
We want to just pause and reflect and thank our essential workers out there on the front lines, not just our healthcare workers who have done magnificent job, our first responders, police and fire, but also those on the front lines like our grocers, farm workers and others that are making sure that our essential needs are met at this very important moment. It's right to pause and reflect and thank each and every one of them. It's also appropriate that we pause and reflect on the economic dislocation that millions and millions of Californians have suffered, and the need to do everything in our power to make sure that their immediate needs are attended to, and that we move aggressively but thoughtfully and strategically with a health-first mindset to reopening the economy at peril of the economic conditions exacerbating.
In Sacramento, California, Angel Membrari, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Now let's find out how we can turn our backyards or front yards or pots into a mini vegetable garden. Eagle News will return shortly. Stay with us.
Hi! Malapit na po magsimula ang pag-isa ng po sa Net 25. See you!
Welcome back. You're watching the ABC international coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Anna Kui in Las Vegas. Because of our situation brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, trips to the market or the grocery could be quite stressful. Aside from having to brave the threat of getting infected by the virus through person-to-person interaction, there's also that worry that the food we buy might have been contaminated as well. And if we don't wash and disinfect them thoroughly, there's that danger of exposing ourselves
With the stay-at-home orders, people are definitely going out less, maybe going to the grocery store once a week or even once every 2 weeks. So with that situation, it's definitely hard to buy fresh. Like if you buy produce, sometimes it won't last that long. So maybe you'll only be able to get produce that for 1 week, and then you might not have anything fresh from the supermarket for the following week. So definitely, I think there's a lot more people buying processed foods.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing, right? Because the processed food are really not good for our health. Why do you think it's a good time now to get into vegetable gardening?
These stay-at-home orders have had so many effects on our health. Like I had mentioned, food-wise, people are making unhealthier choices, but even mental health-wise, people want to be getting outside. Gardening can help you do that, and it's also a great form of exercise.
That's right. Get out there, get some sun. Now, what do you think about, for first-timers, I'm sure there's a lot that are looking into it. What vegetables are easiest to start planting and deliver encouraging results?
I guess it's different for every person. My advice would be to just plant what you like to eat, because if you don't like to eat the thing that you planted, then you're not going to eat it anyway. My favorite things to plant in the summer are tomatoes and zucchinis, just because they are very easy to grow and they always yield a lot of fruit, and I'm always able to share with my family and friends.
Now, I heard that you put together a video a vegetable one-on-one video. So let's take a look at that.
Welcome. So today we'll be talking about vegetable gardening and tips and tricks for having a successful garden. Before we start, let's talk about why we should garden. Since we've been quarantined at home, food security is even more essential than ever before. Having a garden ensures that you'll be able to have a source of food for your family, even if the supermarkets don't have any. Food quality is also improved when you grow it yourself. You pick it when you use it, so it's extra fresh. You can also be sure that there are little to no pesticides in your food because you know exactly what you did to it. Gardening also has many health benefits. Because you're constantly moving, it builds strength in your body and keeps it flexible. The increased sun exposure also helps you to produce vitamin D. Just make sure not to get too much sun and use sunscreen when needed. Gardening can also have positive effects on your immunity and mental health. Last but not least, gardening is environmentally friendly. Because you're only eating and picking what you need when you need it, you know that it's fresh. This is great for you, but also for the environment, because this means that there is little to no food waste. Also, this means that the kale you're eating didn't have to travel all the way from the other side of the country to get to you. Now that we know why we should garden, let's talk about some garden tips and tricks. I'd like to preface this by saying that all the information I will be discussing today is for Agricultural Zone 7A in Southeast Pennsylvania. This just means that if you're a little north of me, you might start things a little later, and if you're south of me, you might start things a little earlier. Here are some crops from fall and early spring that may be a little late to plant now, but it's something you might want to think about later in the year. This is garlic, and it was planted last fall after the first frost, so approximately the first week of November. They will overwinter and start sprouting in around February and should be ready for harvest by the end of June. These peas were put in mid-March. Peas are a vining plant, so a trellis or something for it to grow on is a must. These kale plants were actually planted last fall. Although it's something that we can start right now, I wanted to show you that some crops can actually survive if we have a mild enough winter. Other plants that have had survive and overwinter include collard greens and arugula. So right now we're still in the cooler growing part of the season, so you can only put out our cold crops. So what are cold crops? They are anything that likes being in 30 to 40 degree temperatures and can even tolerate a light frost. You can start planting these when the nights start being consistently in the 40s. For me, I started in about mid to late March planting these. Some of the things I planted included lettuce, kale, radish, arugula, and spinach. This is what they look like after a month of planting seed. The great thing about these are that you are able to get your garden started early in the year. However, once it starts getting warmer, germination on these things might not be as good. Okay, so let's now talk about warm crops. Here in southeast Pennsylvania, these would go out in about mid-May. It's really temperature dependent, and what you should be looking out for is nights consistently in the 60s. This would apply to things like tomatoes, okra, beans, pepper, squash, and anything tropical. However, just because you can only put them out in mid-May doesn't mean you can't get a head start on growing them inside. Here are my tomato seeds that I started growing inside about a month ago. I don't have anything fancy, just a wire shelf, long fluorescent lights, and a cover from a plastic tote to keep everything from getting wet. Then, in a month from now, I'll have plants big enough to have a head start in the growing season. Just make sure that when you bring plants from inside to outside, that you acclimate them slowly. Extreme changes in temperature or light intensity can really shock plants. For example, for these tomatoes, what I would do when I first bring them out is keep them in a shady spot for the first few days. Then they get used to the brighter light from the sun and can be put out in full sun afterwards. This is called hardening off. Next, let's talk about perennial crops. These are plants that come back every year and you don't have to keep replanting them. So these include asparagus, strawberries, rhubarb, raspberries, and blueberries. The great thing about these is that you plant them once and they can feed you and your family for years. Last but not least, there are always foods you can grow from scraps or food from the grocery store. Here are some things that have grown from things I bought for food. This is a sayote, which sprouted on my counter, and this is a piece of ginger that you can put in a pot when it gets warmer. You can also replant hydroponic lettuce or herbs that you get from the store. Other things I've grown from scraps include celery and sweet potato vine. My last tip is just to try things out. Many of the things I know is just from years of doing it. Do what works for you and always try new things. You can always ask other gardeners their experiences, and we're always happy to share information. I hope that this has piqued your curiosity about gardening and encourages you to start a garden of your own.
Wow, lots and lots of great information there, Grace. Now, like for someone like me who no zilch, zero knowledge about gardening, and you did say, ask fellow gardeners or, anybody that's done it. But what would be the basic information? Where would I go? How would I look that up for somebody who doesn't have any information?
I would, like you had mentioned, talk to people that have been gardening for a long time. I would definitely, talking to people that live in your area, because like I had mentioned, me living here in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania is going to be very different than what you're going to experience there in Las Vegas. So definitely talk to local gardeners. You can go to your local arboretums or garden centers will usually have people that are very knowledgeable about different things and tips and techniques, and can recommend products for you to get started on your own garden.
Now, what about for people who may not have, a space in the backyard? I was wondering, I don't know the proper term for it, but those that, that are able to grow indoor, what do you think about that?
I haven't grown indoor long term. I have started seeds, and for my tomato plants, I do keep them inside for 2 to 3 months. So I think it's definitely doable for things that have a shorter time frame for them to grow. I haven't tried anything long term, but starting seeds inside is definitely doable.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that information. And just last question, because I'm curious, if maybe there's some of our viewers who's also wanting to know about being a horticulturist. What education, if you can just tell us about that.
Sure. I went to the University of Hawaii, and my degree is in tropical plant and soil sciences, but horticulture definitely has different branches. Some people go into ornamental horticulture, which is just flowers and things you see like at a botanical garden that's meant to look beautiful, but there's also definitely crops and agriculture type things, and it's definitely a science and an art.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Grace, for all that information, for sharing that. Maybe the next time we get to talk to each other, I can tell you about something I'm able to grow.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the inspiration. Take care. Eagle Broadcasting Corporation invites you to join our 52nd anniversary event, Enjoy Music Beyond the Crisis. It is an online concert that started last Sunday and yesterday, and will happen again on May 10 and 17 from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Philippine time. It is an e-concert for a cause streamed on all EBC social media channels to help our frontliners, healthcare workers, and communities affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. A few reminders before we end today. Wash your hands often with soap and water. Cover your mouth and nose if sneezing or coughing. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Avoid contact with sick people. And if you're sick, stay home and call your healthcare provider. Continue to practice social distancing, keeping your distance between yourself and others, and avoid crowds. Wear a protective face covering when out in public. Let's continue to thank all of our frontline and essential workers with a round of applause. We thank you so much, and we appreciate you. That is today's EBC International coverage of the Coronavirus Pandemic North America edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Anna Kui, and we live in interesting times.
Magandang araw po sa mga EBC viewers at sa mga kababayan ko po na nanonood ngayon. Ako po si John Lucas at inaanyayahan ko po kayo na sana ay patuloy po tayo na tumulong, patuloy po tayo makapag-donate para po sa ating mga kababayan na talagang naapektuhan po nitong COVID-19 pandemic. Madali lang po at kung paano makakatulong ay kahit ano pong Visa, Mastercard, or JCB cards, kahit saan ka mang sulok ng mundo, bumisita lang sa pymy.co/EBC para po mag-donate. At pumili po ng amount na gusto mong i-donate at i-enter po ang iyong card details. Para naman po sa mga walang credit card, pwedeng gamitin ang inyong PayMaya app para mas madaling mag-donate via QR. Mag-log on lang sa inyong PayMaya app at i-click ang scan button. Itutok ang camera ng inyong phone sa QR code na nasa screen ngayon. At i-enter ang amount na gusto nyong i-donate. Yun po, maraming salamat po. Tayong lahat po ay sama-sama as one against COVID-19.